You've heard of Dracula, but what if I told you the real monster was a woman? A countess so obsessed with beauty, she turned blood into her fountain of youth. Her name was Elizabeth Báthory, and her crimes were so horrific, they birthed legends. This is the story of the Blood Countess, history's most prolific female killer. Born in 1560 into one of Hungary's most powerful families, Elizabeth had wealth, power, and status. She married into even greater nobility, ruling over vast estates with thousands of peasants under her control. Outwardly, she was the perfect noblewoman, intelligent, refined, and strikingly beautiful. But behind castle walls, whispers grew of something far darker. Servants began to vanish. Young village girls sent to the castle for work were never seen again. Rumors spread that Elizabeth had turned her fortress into a house of nightmares. And soon, even the nobility couldn't ignore the horror. According to legend, it all began with a single drop of blood. One day, Elizabeth struck a servant girl in anger, and when the girl's blood splashed on her skin, Elizabeth thought her flesh looked younger. From that moment, obsession took over. She began torturing young women in secret chambers of her castle. Girls were chained, beaten, and stabbed, their screams echoing through the halls. Witnesses later described iron maidens, spiked cages, and rooms drenched in blood. Some said Elizabeth bit chunks of flesh from her victims with her own teeth. And then came her most infamous ritual, bathing in the blood of virgins. Convinced it would preserve her youth, Elizabeth ordered girls drained like livestock. She would soak herself in their blood, believing it made her skin glow. Historians still debate how much of this legend is true, but what's undeniable is the body count. Court documents record at least 80 confirmed victims. Some witnesses swore the number was over 600. 600 missing girls, all linked to one noblewoman. Her castle became known as Sedge House of Horror. Locals claimed the soil outside the walls ran dark with spilled blood. And still, Elizabeth's power kept her safe. No one dared accuse a countess outright. But whispers reached the Hungarian king, who could no longer ignore the terror. In 1610, soldiers stormed her castle in the dead of night. What they found inside stunned even hardened warriors. Blood-soaked walls, torture devices still slick with fresh gore, and half-dead girls chained in the dungeons, their bodies broken beyond recognition. It was the proof no one could deny. Elizabeth was arrested, but her noble status saved her from execution. The king feared the scandal of killing a countess. Instead, she was sentenced to a living tomb, bricked up inside her own castle tower, with only a tiny slit for food and water. For 4 long years, she wasted away in darkness. The woman who had bathed in blood now starved in silence. In 1614, she was found lifeless on the stone floor of her cell. Her reign of terror finally over, but her legend lived on. She became known as the Blood Countess, the female Dracula. Some say her story inspired Bram Stoker's immortal vampire, a noble woman who fed on blood to escape death. But here's the chilling truth. Historians argue that parts of her story were exaggerated by her political enemies, that her trial was more about land and power than justice for the dead. So was Elizabeth a mass murderer, or the victim of one of history's greatest smear campaigns? The truth may never be fully known, but what's certain is this: her name became a synonym for blood-soaked horror. Elizabeth Báthory remains one of history's darkest legends. A woman who blurred the line between myth and reality, between beauty and brutality, and between history and nightmare.